Hello, Jeff. I was really excited to see your scary board come up the Creepy Con. This is a way fun idea. I think you'll have a blast working with it. I do understand what you were saying about not caring for the spacious look and wanting to go with a more chaotic feel that honestly we should associate with Halloween and scary murderous clowns. Um, what I want to show you how to do is how to create a chaotic feel that is not visually overwhelming. Because this has so much text on it, it's really hard to just look at quickly and get really an idea of exactly what you're creating. Um, so there's a few things I would like you to change about your board. I would like you to go to each of these big text areas and really narrow it down, summarize it, minimize it. So, for example, music, you could put in the look inspired by music like This Is Halloween by Danny Elfman or Highway to Hell by AC/DC, instead of having a whole list. Or if you're expecting to put, these guys would be performers, then mention that. But bring it down so it's not a whole paragraph here. And then kind of over here, this is doing well. I think you can get rid of anything that's redundant, such as the description of the color scheme, because that will be over here. I think the other descriptions are good and should stay. As for fonts, I want you to narrow it down to the 3, maybe 4 that you're actually going to use with this project, because where this is such a more kind of visceral feel, the fonts you pick are going to have a large effect on the overall style. So I would say narrow it down to one you like the most that you're going to use for a title. So in this case, that would be this font. And then a secondary one that contrasts well but can still be kind of ornamental, like maybe Oslo. And then pick one that you can do large areas of text and still have it be readable. So the Gill Sans is pretty good, but it's a really tall, skinny one, and unless you use it really large, it's hard to read from a distance. So you might want to find one that's not quite as skinny, but I like the idea of the serif because that's where that controlled part of the chaos comes from. So title, kind of subtitle, body, and then for something like this, something crazy for accents, like the super drippy or this kind of vampire looking one would be awesome. As far as graphics go, these are helpful for me to kind of get the idea of the overall kind of emotional response that you want people to have when they look at your stuff. But part of this board is to help someone understand the stylistic look of what you will be creating is. So things like an illustration, while cool, won't be used really on your project because it's not your artwork, it's somebody else's, or I guess I don't know, it might be yours. If it's yours, you can certainly use it, but if it's somebody else's illustrations, you really can't use it. So things like examples of a website that you like the look of, or a something like this is really great because that kind of says, I like the look of this, I'm going to try and emulate some of that. So stuff like that is going to be more useful on this board than illustrations, although that guy is awesome, and this is cool. I've seen it before, but I can't remember who the artist is. Pictures or photos aren't so much helpful unless you're planning on using them as a visual element in what you're designing. So I think you could even get rid of this and get rid of that one. Okay, so to sum up, minimize what you've got, and you can still create chaos by making sure that you create groups of chaotic things and then have space between the groups, because that'll give people's eye somewhere to rest, which is something we like. If I landed on this as a web page, I'd kind of glaze over because it's almost too much information to take in. So I really hope you don't mind, but I took some of the stuff off of here and kind of threw together something as a sort of a visual example of what I'm trying to talk about, you can take some of those really textural graphics and overlap them, and you can use those really cool fonts almost in a sense of being a graphic. You can make them really big. You can use kind of the negative space idea if you like that look, and that's where the type is the same color as the background and just shows up where it's overlapping a graphic. Grouping pictures together, even if they're overlapped, will give you a feel of there's lots of things going on, but they're overlapped, so it's still a group. Your eye can still spot whatever's going on. So if this feels too organized to you, you can even do things like this. But it is really important that there are areas of organization, or else it's just going to feel overwhelming instead of inspiring or informative. The last thing to remember, that idea of space, separate your chaotic areas with some empty negative space. Now I say empty negative space in the sense of there's not anything really important there. So on this, I've created a wide border that's the same all the way around by just not putting type that close to the edge. So you can see here kind of the important stuff ends about the same place all the way around. It might overlap a tiny bit, but not enough to make it feel like it's unbalanced one way or the other. The reason for that is if you take the type and scooch it closer to the edge, it has a much more squished feeling, and if you're doing a lot of chaotic type graphics, how you treat your type is going to make a big impact. So make sure it's readable. I think this one I put a drop shadow behind so you could read it on a busy background. So I know that's a ton of feedback, but it looked like you put a ton of thought into this, and I really like the way it's going. I'm very interested to see what you're going to come up with. So minimize what's on here, narrow down your fonts, and choose some graphics that are similar to what you'll be creating for your project, and this will be totally good to go. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. Don't add it as a comment here on the homework feedback. I have not been getting those, and it's a little bit frustrating, but I always get the email. So shoot me an email if you have questions, or you can even give me a phone call. I think my contact info is on the website. So yeah, good luck with this.